Tim, South Carolina, tell your story.
Well, what actually got me started was up at my buddy's Newsom's place. He had some hogs and stuff coming in, and he wanted them killed out of his yard. And so we went up one night, and he's got a little old cabin up in the woods, and we got up in the loft and took the screen off the window, and we're sitting there, and 3 coons come out in the yard running around, and they'd done that for probably 10, 15 minutes, and it got good and dark, and all of a sudden they run out of the yard, and one of them started squalling, and like it was getting killed. And that went on for maybe 3 or 4 seconds, and then you just heard a big wah, and everything went dead quiet. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and then it started whistling. And I told him, I said, buddy boy, I know pretty much all the animals in these woods, the black panthers, the bears, the bobcats, mountain lions, all of that stuff. But I don't know nothing that's going to catch and kill a coon like that. Number one, roar like that, and number 2, start whistling. I said, something ain't right. So we just sort of let it go, and then we started having, the more and more we went on his property. His property was where they would come up in summertime to get, just to stay, come up from Florida and stay. But they moved up permanently and become a neighbor, and we would go up to the cabin and was fixing it up for him to hunt. And the more time we started spending up there, the more things started happening, getting rocks thrown at us, getting yelled at, screamed at, all of our hunting trails and going up to our tree stands and stuff, getting stuff put in them. I mean, you come in, there'd be a top out of a pine tree that big around, just drove straight down in the ground, and the pine tree not around nowhere. So we knew something was going on then. And then I got lucky enough to catch one of them on my trail cam. You can see it doing I guess you'd call it the classic peek around the tree, where it's looking around like that. And I never thought about actually doing anything about it. We just would take our phones and go back and show our families, say, look what they did, this, that, or the other. And then I met you guys, and then that's when I thought, well, if I'd have known them 4, 5, 6 years ago, I could have got a lot more stuff than what I've got. But that's when my true research started. Is when I met Yuns, and Yuns is guiding me on the audio recorders and the trail cams and thermals and all of that stuff. But that's how I got started, was up on his property. And since then, I have seen 3 of them that I know pretty much without a doubt that's what they was. 2 of them for sure. The other one, from the way it looked running away on all 4s, it just about had to be, because its front end was up here and its back end was down here, and it cleared probably 100 yards in just a few seconds. I mean, it was gone out of sight. Wow. And so that, it just got it started. And it seems like, for some reason, I don't know if it's because of where I hunt at. I'm hunting where they like to hunt, but it seems like I find them a lot where I'm hog hunting and deer hunting and that kind of stuff. And actually, some of the places that I hunt, they actually showed up years later. I'd been hunting in there for years. And then all of a sudden the hogs moved in, and I was having 20, 30 hogs on my camera constant. And then started finding sign of them moving in, the broke over trees and getting growled at and rocks thrown and all that stuff. And in a year's time, it went from that many hogs down to 3. I had 2 pregnant sows and a boar, and the one sow, she had about 8 or 10 little ones. I got them on my trail cam going through, and about 2 weeks later, come back and there's one little one following her.
Wow.
So, and to me, that's about the only thing that's going to, take a little one from a sow. And, you know, she would run a bear or something off. But that's just how I got into it, and I'm staying in it because it seems like everywhere I go, I'm running into them. So this year during turkey season, I run into 2 that was in places that I'd seen my first one. The place where that was at, I got yelled at 4 times, just back to back. And my daddy heard it. He was about a half a mile away from me. And when we got back to the truck, he said, "Did you hear something hollering?" I said, "Yeah." It was right down below me. And then on the other end of the county, I was walking in and had one whistling at me as I was walking through the field in there to where I was going to turkey hunt at. And I know it wasn't nobody because there's only one parking spot. And they either, you know, they'd have to be right there where I'm at. And number 2, if it would have been somebody, they would have said, "Hey, I'm here," or whatever. But I was walking in without my flashlight, so that means whatever could see me after dark.
Right.
And everything. So, but it's just been something that I didn't think I'd ever get into because I didn't know if I really believed it or not. And but now that it's happened, it's sort of an obsession. Not that I just want to learn as much as I can, because for everything we get an answer for, 1,000 more questions pop up. So, and that's just how I got into it, and I have you and Dwight to thank for that. Thanks, guys. But I really do appreciate it and everything. And but that's how it all got started.
Tell me about hunting and hearing them talk.
Oh, yeah, we was up on my buddy's property, and I killed a 8-point buck up there at where I hunt at. And we went in, it was on a Tuesday evening, and his property is behind lock gates. So you're gonna have to walk through his yard pretty much to get to his property. Or Dwight can tell you, we went to his property another way, and people hunting ain't gonna do that. I mean, it'll kill you. And but we was sitting up there, and he was about 300 or 400 yards from me. And I'm sitting there, and I hear something, and I thought, well, somebody's on his property. And I kept listening, and I could tell they was talking, but the language didn't make sense. And it wasn't Mexican, it wasn't Japanese, it wasn't anything I'd ever heard. It to me, it sounded a lot like Native American with monkey gibberish thrown in on it. And I texted my buddy and I said, "There's somebody on your property." And I said, "I can hear them talk, and I'm hard of hearing, so for me to hear them talk, they was close." And he said, "Well, sit still." He said, "Because they have to turn their lights on to leave. And we'll corner them and ask them what they're doing in there, you know, whenever that happens." And we sat till pitch black dark. And when it got completely dark, the talking quit. But no lights ever come on. And he was further up the hill from me, so he come down by me after it got pitch black dark, and we left. And then we went back in on Thursday the same week, and the same thing happened again. Just about the same time, about 30 minutes before pitch black dark, when deer get to moving and all of that stuff, they started talking again. And I texted him again. I said, "Whoever, whatever that is, it's still here because they're doing it again." And we sat that evening till even later, and no lights ever come on. Nobody moved. Nobody. And that's the thing. As close as they was, if I'd have known then what I know now, I would have paid more attention. But I'm thinking somebody, you know. But now that I've got into it a little deeper and all of that stuff, I honestly believe it was them talking back and forth, just like we're talking. And because they done it about the same time every evening, they would start and stop. Just like, well, it's time for deer to come out, so we'll make some noise and he ain't gonna see nothing. It honestly seemed that way. And that same spot, I've been sitting there and have them come in during 2016. This all started in 2008 when I first run into them and stuff. And then in 2016, I was up there, me and my dad was. And last year we had all the wildfires. And I heard something coming around, come up the ridge and circle around, and like it's coming to me. So I thought it was deer going to move through. And I'm getting ready to, it quietens down. And I thought, well, they'll be here just any minute, you know. And then here comes a rock about 50 yards out. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. And I thought, I'm just going to sit here and just see how close they'll throw it, because by then I know not to be afraid of them. If they wanted me, they could have done and had me. So I'd sit real still, and 5-10 minutes, here one landed about 40 yards, 30 yards, 20 yards, and the last one hit about a foot from my foot. And I said, but not big, about that big around. And I thought, okay, then it's time for me to go. And I called my dad up, and I said, them Bigfoots are up here throwing rocks at me. It's time for me to go, especially with a crossbow. If I'd had my high-powered rifle, that wouldn't have been, well, probably wouldn't have done no good, but I wouldn't
felt better about it.
Yeah, I'd felt a little braver. But he said the craziest thing was, he said, I was sitting down here right after you left me, and we've got an old porta-john that we made into a blind, a deer stand. And my dad was on up above it, and he said, down there where the old porta-john blind is, said something would whistle. And he said, then something straight up above me would whistle twice. And that one would whistle once, this one would whistle twice. And from where he was talking about, that's exactly where it come from, up the ridge, left him and come up to where I was at. So that showed me right then how intelligent they are. And he had never heard them whistle. And he said, I think I'm ready to get out of here. So we left, and we went back up in there a few days later, and he actually shot 2 does. And they run practically the same trail and died at the same spot. And I drug them to the same spot beside the creek and gutted them. And the guy from the BFRO that was coming to interview me, I showed him where it was at. Well, the gut piles was gone. And I mean, it was as clean as the kitchen table. They wasn't a hair left. They wasn't even the leaves where the blood, where they had run, because he shot them with a crossbow, and blood was everywhere. I found one leaf out of that 20 yards that they had run. I found one leaf that still had blood on it. They wasn't a leaf with blood. They wasn't a leaf out of place where the gut piles was. I found one white hair where I'd gutted them, and they had rolled under a little old stick that had fell down. There was one white hair stuck to that. Wow. Not a leaf out of place. Just picked up and hauled off.
Well, tell us about the finding Bigfoot. Your finding Bigfoot experience. Like, how did they? You went to the meeting, or? Yeah,
I got I filled their report out on their website, the BFRO website, and a guy named Jim Kermitsky set up a time to meet with me, and I got permission from my buddy Newsom and took him up on his place and everything, and showed him, because we just wanted answers. We just wanted to know if we was losing our mind, or if there's something really going on and all of that stuff. So he come in, and I showed him what and all had happened and where it had happened and that kind of stuff. And he said, yeah, you definitely got them moving in up here. And so he told me, he said, they're getting ready to do a local show, and they're going to be doing the town hall meeting in Nashville. And he said, whatever you do, you need to be at that meeting. I said, okay, I'll be there. And so I went to the town hall meeting, and whenever Jim Kaminsky was sitting up on the front row, and I was back in the audience, and when they asked me to tell my story, Matt Moneymaker looked at Jim, and Jim was going, like, this is the guy I was telling you about. And they done their Bobo come up and done the interview and all that stuff, but they done their last night's investigation up there, and they got, I think it's either 3 or 4 wood knocks up there. And I left them because I told them, I said, I don't want anybody to think I've got, trying to fool somebody or nothing like that. I told them, I said, I'll lock you behind the gates. You've got a key, mail it back to me, and let me know what you find. And they did. And but that was when I was on there, and I actually run into Bobo the next day in Nashville, and he said, "Man," he said, "that is wild up there, ain't it?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "That one place you told us to go to," he said, "I fell down and he slid down the hill and ripped the bottom of his breeches out." He was in Walmart buying him some new breeches, but he said that they had heard those wood knocks and stuff, and so that got me on the Bigfoot 911 website, which then got me with you guys, and that's just pretty much how it all started. I guess the funniest thing that would probably honestly started it all, Newsom's boys went in his cabin because we put him up deer feeders and stuff like that, and he had a set of fallow deer horns hanging in the cabinet. Well, they went in, snuck in them, got them, and stuck them around in front of his trail camera. And this was back when it had to be developed, film, And he called me. He said, "We got to get in the woods. We got to go. We got to go." And he's at Walmart looking at the picture, and luckily that was the first picture he come across was them horns. So he was just being out of shape. I ain't coming out of my tree stand. They ain't got deer like this here. I'm gonna kill it. And his wife said, "Did you look at the other pictures? I ain't got to see nothing. This is all I got to see." You can hear grabbing vine, using Cokes and crackers and all that stuff. And look at the other pictures. And he finally looked, and the very next one, there was all his kids holding the horn. And he let it go for about a year. And he said, "Now then, we got to get even with them." And I told him, I said, "Well," I said, "I know what we can do." And I told him about my daddy and them finding the tracks up on Standing Indian where we lived back in the 70s. They found some bear footprints in December in the snow up our deer hunting. And my daddy's buddy wore a size, I think it's like 13, and it swallowed his boot and everything up. It was huge. And I told him, I said, "I'll cut us out some tracks and we'll get the boys." And so I got me some decking boards and took my Dremel too and rounded the toes real good. And every mud hole we come to, I screwed them in onto my shoes, and we made, just all kind of good sign up to there. And he took them out, and I told him, I said, "When you go, I got to stay at the house because I'll start laughing. I can't fool people that good." And he was going up, and they walked right by it and didn't even see it. And he said, "Yeah, ha ha, real funny, guys. You ain't get me like this, like you did on the deer head." And they said, "What is it?" And he showed them the track, and they started freaking out. "Dad, we got to get cameras in the woods. We got to do all of this." So they was in the band, and they had to play that night. So while they was going to play, I went back to get my shoes. And I broke some more limbs off and threw clothes on top of the house and turned chairs over in the yard and all that stuff. Well, they know their daddy was with them. So when they come in at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, here's this stuff tore all to pieces, and they called it, "Daddy, that thing's been back, and it's saying in your face, it threw their clothes on top of the house." And they finally figured out that it was me and him that done it. So that happened before we actually had that one kill the coon. So when that happened, nobody wanted to believe us. It's like, "Yeah, yins ain't done that. We ain't believing nothing yins say." But but once they started having experiences themselves, sitting around their fire pit and red eyes are glowing in the laurel bushes and that kind of stuff, and wood knocks just right outside the firelight, it didn't take them long to realize that there was something up there. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I've got the one about where that was doing the deer drive.
All right.
And I went around there to where I bow hunt at, and it was that time of morning when you can just start walking without a light, and, you know, but it ain't light enough to see a long ways. But I got up to where I was going to say that, and that's actually become mine and Dwight's research area, one of them. And I took my backpack off and started to sit down. Well, here comes this doe running down the ridge to me, right at me. And she sees me, and she stops, turns around, and runs back up the ridge. Turns around, runs back down the ridge. Turns around, runs back up. She done that about 6 or 8 times, just back and forth as fast as she could go. And finally, she got about halfway between me and where she was turning around, which was out of bow range for me. And she just stood there, like panicked, you know, in my eyes like that, and breathing heavy and everything. And I thought, what's that crazy thing of doing? And she started blowing and looking up there, and I thought, well, something's up there. You know, I just started watching for coyotes and that kind of stuff. But nothing ever did show. And finally, she just went off out of my sight to where I lost sight of her. And about, I guess about an hour up at the top of the clear cut where she went, you could hear 2 of them up there yelling and screaming. It honestly sounded like they was cussing me out. And all of this, and I'm like, well, God, I didn't know, you know. and I honestly think what they was doing, that one was driving the deer down to the other one, and it would catch it and kill it. But when I come through, it had to hide. And so then whenever the deer went on and they figured they wasn't going to get it, they just was going back right across the ridge of my buddy's property. I mean, it's straight up and over, but it was like they was going back towards his property. And honest to goodness, if that was the weirdest and funny, I honestly got tickled, because it sounded like it was calling me everything that you could think of. And I'm like, well, you know, guys, I'm sorry, but and
you should have let me know.
Yeah, and not far from there, I actually shot a deer one time, and I mean, I made a good shot on it with my crossbow. Tracked it up, followed the blood right to it, got to where it should have been, and the deer's gone. There's not a drop of blood. My arrow was laying there, so the arrow, if they took the arrow out, if it had fell out, it should have bled even more. Well, there wasn't no blood, there wasn't no more tracks, nothing. It all stopped right there in that one spot. And I've often wondered if maybe they didn't, because they know when you're in the woods. Oh, yeah. And whenever that deer run and fell, if they didn't run down there and grab it right quick before I could get to it. Yeah.
Left your arrow, so here's your arrow, go get another one.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. It's just like, because when I pinned it in the shoulder, that deer, there ain't no way it could get back and get that arrow out. But there it was, and nothing. I mean, no more tracks. And this is in fall when there's leaves on the ground, and if there had been more blood, I'd have found it. Or if it would have run any farther, I would have found it. I'd seen where it left the tracks and stuff, but one of them things.
That's just how it is.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't doubt it at all now that we know all that we know.
No, yeah. At the time, I'm like, well, where did that stupid thing go? But now that I've actually got on well, I did till it all got erased, but I had a video of something, and it had to be tall walking the ridge line, and you could tell it was upright and bipedal walking that ridge line. The bear dog just barking down below, going around the road. They was in a truck and driving around the road, and they're barking, and you can see something. I mean, it's standing upright, and it's going up that ridge top like it's moving out. You can see the shadow going up through there, and that's the same area. So that I thought, well, maybe that is what happened to it,
Yeah, very well could be. Would you want to tell about what was that when you and Dwight and Robin were up there?
Oh, when that one done the Bluff charge?
Yeah.
Yeah, that place, it's called Scaly Mountain, and it's right on the Georgia line. And I'd actually got whooped at down there during turkey season. And it followed me out the road probably 100 yards. And every time I'd stop to call, because I had the turkey gobble, and I was trying to get that turkey to answer me back, and every time I'd stop, it would whoop at me. And so I thought, well, not down here, you know, but sure enough, it did. And I went in with my dad to fix him a place during deer season. And when we come back out, there was a pine tree, and I showed it to Robin and Dwight, and you could see where it reached around that pine tree. You could see the claw marks on this side, but where the thumb went around this one and raked it and tore the bark and stuff off of it while we was actually around the road. And we come back, and there it was. So I took them down there to show them that, and we got out of the truck and started around the road. And off on the right-hand side, we seen some structures and stuff, and went and, you know, filmed it and videoed it and took pictures. And we started back up into the road and started around into that, where that tree was. And we heard it up on top of the ridge start making noise. And the ridge runs this way, but there's a little finger ridge that dropped down, and it come off on the backside of that finger ridge and got down below us. And then it got between us and the vehicles. And it was making all kinds of noise. I mean, it was yelling and like that, but I mean loud, you know. And we're standing there like, well, it's between us and the vehicles. There ain't a whole lot we can do. So we just stood there real still, and finally it moved on. And we went off down in there where it had come off and down into that bottom, and we found some little tracks down there. So evidently there was a little one down in there, and she was up on the ridge hunting, because the ridge she was on is wooded on this side, and this side's a clear cut. And the deer like running that ridge. And so evidently she was up there hunting, and then we come in and started to get between her and the little one, and she didn't like it too good.
Man, I wish I'd have been there for that. I'd love to have heard that.
At first, I didn't know if I wanted to be or not, but because, I mean, I had my pistol like I got in my truck, but you're standing there listening to it, and that little 22 Magnum, you're like, well, I could shoot Dwight and Robin. I might could get away if I shoot them.
But, or at least one of them.
Yeah, at least one of them. You know, Canada will never miss her. She's all right.
But, she never came back.
But, and we don't know for sure, but we're almost 100% sure that it let the back of Dwight's rig down. Because when we got back out there, the back of his rig was let down. And we had put it up, and there wasn't nobody drove in, because we never got outside of the old gravel road that goes up in there. I mean, we was never any more than 200 yards from it, right, the whole time we was gone. And they would have had to drove right by us to get up to his vehicle, but we get back up there, and the back of it's down.
Well, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was the only thing that happened, you know, so that sort of knocks it down to what happened.
That's when you wish you had left the camera running in the car.
And yeah.
I did that one time up at, Dwight, I went up to Buffalo Cove by myself one day, and I parked on the side. The gate was open, so I went down in there and parked on a little pullover kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I'm gonna leave the camera running. But I believe it on my heart they're in there. And that's where we found that, you know, those pictures of Dwight kneeling down beside that thing.
Yeah.
That's that general area right there. And I thought, they know I'm in here. It wasn't no kind of hunting season or nothing.
Yeah.
And so I walked down the road and cut back around through, and I just thought, come in here and mess around the car.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I get them.
Yeah.
I didn't, but wouldn't you like to have a video camera going on the console, looking out the back.
Yeah.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
That would have been.
Stuff happens when you least expect it to happen.
Yeah, it
I had
does.
been running my camera all day that day. And so, I mean, I wasn't running it when we got out. Robin was running hers. I'm like, I'm okay. And then all of a sudden you hear it carrying on like that. You're like, damn, I ain't got nothing on me right now. But then you got to let the whole thing play out. You know?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about it, man. If there's one thing we've learned, you know, you put so much time and effort into this. But you want to. It's not a job. It's fun.
Yeah.
You know, but you put a lot of, you know.
Yeah.
And record.
Uh-huh.
Always.
Soon as you get to where you're going, start your audio recorder right away.
Uh-huh.
And the thing about your camera is it can pick up audio, but it's only going to see
Yeah.
so much. You know,
Yeah.
and the 360 cameras are good, but you don't really get a lot of distance on them.
Yeah.
You know, the further, just the way it's made, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's great for seeing all around you.
Yeah.
But you don't really, the further you get out, it seems to diminish a lot.
Plus, I mean, that's a lot of data to check.
Absolutely.
360 camera. I'd almost rather take 4 cameras and make a 360 than check each one individually. I mean, it's hard to check a 360 camera and check everything.
Yeah, because you look this way and then you move it and you look at that and you move it more and you look at that. But yeah, that is true. But record.
Yeah.
And always erase stuff. It ain't like you got to buy tapes,
Yeah.
film, or
Yeah,
whatever.
don't set your thermal on top of your truck and turn it on and then forget to record and let one walk right by your truck and somebody else get it on their thermal.
Yeah.